He thought he knew his empire until a teenager's quiet complaint stopped him in his tracks. A billionaire CEO, disguised as an ordinary shopper, strolling unnoticed through his own luxury mall. A single overheard sentence. A truth no survey or boardroom ever revealed. What he discovers next will challenge everything he believed about his business and himself. Sometimes, the loudest wake-up calls come in whispers. Stay with us as we unravel the shocking secret hidden beneath the marble floors and designer storefronts. Because of this story, it's not just about profits. It's about people. Ethan Ramsey adjusted the baseball cap low over his brow as he stepped through the grand entrance of Ramsey Plaza, his own creation. The sprawling shopping mall gleamed under the midday sun, glass panels reflecting the sky, marble floors polished to a perfect shine. To every passerby, he looked like just another middle-aged man in jeans and a hoodie, maybe taking a day off work. No one recognized him. And that was exactly the point. For years, Ethan had ruled his empire from a penthouse office, gazing down at reports, numbers, and graphs. But numbers couldn't tell him what really happened here, not down on the floor. After a string of complaints, rude employees, questionable store practices, rumors of unethical sales tactics, he needed to see it himself. Not as CEO Ethan Ramsey, but as an ordinary shopper. Undercover, he walked past high-end boutiques and buzzing food courts, pausing every so often to watch interactions. A mother arguing with a store clerk over a return. A teenager is being ignored at the electronics counter. A janitor hurriedly mopped up a spill while customers sidestepped him without a glance. Ethan made mental notes, his gaze sharp beneath the cap. He'd instructed his executive team that he was traveling for the weekend. No one in the mall knew he was here. The mall's general manager, Leonard Pierce, had no idea. Leonard had been with Ramsey Plaza for over a decade, dependable, efficient, praised in reports. But lately, Ethan wasn't so sure. He stopped near a small kiosk selling phone accessories. The teenage attendant sat scrolling through her phone, oblivious to a customer waiting. Ethan watched as the customer gave up and walked away. "Strike one," he muttered under his breath. Making his way deeper into the mall, Ethan kept his pace casual, blending in. He didn't carry a clipboard or take photos. He wanted to experience the mall like anyone else. The smells of pretzels and cinnamon buns wafted through the air. Kids laughed at the arcade. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But he knew better. Perfection was often a veneer. As he turned a corner near the food court, he heard it. A voice so not necessarily yours, certain, sharp, frustrated. "They told me it was genuine leather. My mom saved up for this. And now they won't even give me a refund." Ethan froze. The voice belonged to a teenager, maybe 16, standing outside a trendy handbag store. His hands were balled into fists, holding a small shopping bag. His eyes shimmered with angry tears. "I spent everything I had on this for her birthday," the teen said to no one in particular. They knew I couldn't tell the difference. Ethan stepped closer, pretending to browse a nearby display. He watched as the boy stared helplessly at the closed glass doors of the store. Inside, two sales associates laughed, completely ignoring him. Something about the boy's words lodged in Ethan's chest. It wasn't just a bad customer experience. There was something darker underneath. Manipulation, exploitation. "Mom's gonna cry when she finds out," the boy whispered under his breath, voice breaking. Ethan's stomach twisted. He'd heard enough. Whatever was happening inside that store wasn't a one-off mistake. Ethan knew retail tactics, but this felt personal, predatory. And if this was happening under his nose, it begged a bigger question. What else was going on? As the boy walked away, head down, Ethan followed at a distance. Not as a CEO, not yet. Right now, he was just a man who'd stumbled onto a story, a complaint that wasn't just about a bag, but maybe a crack in the very foundation of his mall. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt the fire he'd had when he first opened Ramsey Plaza. The need to protect, to do right. "Let's see where this goes," he murmured, setting his sights on the teen disappearing into the crowd. He had a feeling this wasn't the last he'd hear of Marcus Carter. Adora. Ethan took a steadying breath as he watched the girl walk away, disappearing into the crowd of shoppers. He couldn't shake the tone of her voice, the quiet desperation. Mom works overtime every night, and we're still barely making it. The words haunted him. But who was she, and what had she meant about the bonus being taken? He scanned the bustling food court, spotting the tall, well-dressed man she had spoken to earlier. The manager turned toward. Ethan narrowed his eyes. If anyone knew what was going on, it was him. Ethan adjusted his hoodie, pulling the brim of his cap lower. He didn't want to blow his cover just yet. Slipping into the line at the smoothie stand nearby, he positioned himself to overhear. I told you, Mia, the manager was saying, his voice low but firm as he spoke into his phone. Nobody's getting overtime anymore. The head office cut hours weeks ago. Tell them it's not my problem. Ethan's jaw tightened. That wasn't true. He hadn't approved any cuts. He personally reviewed every payroll adjustment, and there were no memos about reducing overtime. And the bonus, no mention of that either. The manager ended the call, sighing in frustration, then pulled out a slim envelope from his inside jacket pocket. Ethan watched as he casually slipped it into a nearby messenger bag, marked with the mall's logo, before zipping it closed and tossing it under the counter. Interesting. Ethan stepped back from the smoothie stand, a plan forming in his mind. He wasn't just going to confront the man. Not yet. He needed to understand the full picture. There had been too many warning signs lately: disgruntled employees, higher turnover, even customer complaints trickling up through the layers of middle management. It wasn't just the food court. Something was festering deeper in his maw. He decided to follow the manager. The man left the counter minutes later, heading toward the staff-only corridor behind the food court. Ethan trailed him at a safe distance, weaving through holiday shoppers without drawing attention. The manager stopped at a door labeled Authorized Personnel Only, swiped a key card, and disappeared inside. Ethan hesitated. He didn't have clearance to enter those spaces in disguise. But he knew another way. Years ago, when the mall was first being built, he had personally toured every inch of the structure. There was a service stairwell behind the old arcade. Few people remembered it even existed. Making his way there, Ethan found the rusted door unlocked. It creaked softly as he pushed it open, revealing the narrow concrete steps leading up to the administrative level. He climbed 2 flights, heart pounding not from exertion, but from anticipation. Voices drifted from the hallway ahead. If anyone asks, we're following policy. Bonuses were reallocated. Nobody needs to know. I'm telling you, Greg, it's getting riskier. That girl, the cashier, she's asking too many questions. It doesn't matter. By the time anyone figures it out, we'll be long gone. Ethan froze. Gregship, his food court manager. And someone else, another voice he recognized, but couldn't immediately place. He edged closer to the corner, peering around just enough to see. Greg stood by an office door, speaking with another man, another manager. No, not just any manager. It was Paul, his district operations lead. Ethan's stomach turned. This wasn't just petty theft or a disgruntled supervisor pocketing spare change. This was organized. He pulled back, leaning against the wall as the weight of it settled over him. Bonuses are being reallocated. Overtime cut. Payroll adjustments. Lies trickling down to the front lines, while the money funneled upward into their pockets. And that teenage girl, probably one of dozens who'd been promised bonuses that never arrived, who worked extra hours that mysteriously vanished from their paychecks. Ethan clenched his fists. He couldn't walk into that office now. They'd cover their tracks the moment they saw him. He needed proof, and he needed it fast. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message from his executive assistant. Everything okay? Sir, board meeting starts in an hour. Ethan stared at the screen. No, not key. Everything was not okay. He typed back. Reschedule. I'm handling something important. Slipping the phone back into his pocket, he squared his shoulders and took a deep breath. He had built this mall from the ground up to be a place of opportunity, not exploitation. And now, it was time to clean house. Starting tonight. Ethan kept walking, weaving through the weekend crowd, but his mind was racing. The words from that teenager, "They're exploiting us, but no one cares," kept echoing louder than the mall's ambient noise. He had to see for himself. He rounded a corner and found the small kiosk tucked between two larger retail stores. Ramsey Plaza. The sign read, though half the bulbs in the sign were dead. Behind the cluttered counter stood the same teen. Slender build, tired eyes, name tag barely hanging onto his oversized apron. The boy was folding shirts when a middle-aged manager stormed up to him. "Jaden," the manager barked. "Why haven't you clocked out yet? I'm not paying overtime for a high school kid who moves like molasses." Jaden flinched but kept his head down. "I still have to clean the fitting rooms." The manager sneered. "That's not my problem. Clock out now or I'll write you up." Ethan froze in his tracks. His jaw clenched as he watched the boy nod quietly, step behind the counter, and swipe his badge to clock out, then pick up a broom anyway. He wasn't just witnessing bad management. He was witnessing something deeper: exploitation, fear, an entire system preying on kids like Jaden, who didn't know they had rights or couldn't afford to challenge authority. Ethan stepped closer, still in disguise, his baseball cap shadowing his face. "Excuse me," he said, pretending to browse a rack. "You okay, kid?" Jaden glanced up, startled, then forced a weak smile. "Yeah, this for another doing. Just tired." "Do you work a lot of hours?" Jaden shrugged. "As much as they'll give me. My mom's between jobs, so rent's got to come from somewhere." The casualness of the statement hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a lazy teen complaining about long shifts. This was a young man carrying more responsibility than most adults. Suddenly, the manager returned, noticing Ethan hovering nearby. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked sharply, eyeing Ethan's simple clothes with thinly veiled disdain. "Just browsing," Ethan replied coolly, holding the manager's gaze. "Saw you talking to your employee pretty harshly." The manager's smile turned brittle. "Internal matters. Nothing a customer needs to worry about." Ethan's eyes flicked to Jaden, who was silently sweeping under a rack of jeans. "Seems like a hard-working kid." "Sure," the manager said, waving dismissively, "when he shows up on time. But we're running a business, not a charity." Ethan's hands curled into fists inside his pockets. The layers were peeling back fast. If this was how management treated staff in public view, what happened behind closed doors? "Thanks for the chat," Ethan said evenly. "Interesting place you run here." Without waiting for a reply, he walked away, heart pounding. He needed answers, real answers, and there was only one way to get them. He pulled out his phone and dialed a private number. "Logan," came the voice on the other end. "It's Ethan," he said quietly. "I need the full employee records for Ramsey Plaza at Westridge Mall. I want schedules, payroll, complaints, everything." There was a pause. "Sir, you're going undercover on this one." "I already am," Ethan replied. "And I've seen enough to know something's wrong." He hung up and looked back toward the kiosk. Jaden was still sweeping, alone, long after his shift had technically ended. And Ethan knew this wasn't just a bad manager. This was a broken system, and he was going to break it wide open. That night, Ethan sat in his penthouse office overlooking the city, a steaming mug of coffee in hand, the day's disguise folded neatly on the couch. His assistant, Logan, arrived with a thick file, placing it gently on the mahogany desk. "Everything you asked for," Logan said. "But, you're not going to like it." Ethan flipped the file open. His eyes scanned the pages, shift schedules that routinely exceeded legal hourly limits for minors, payroll records showing unexplained deductions, A pattern of unpaid overtime flagged by an auditor 6 months ago. Ignored. And tucked in the back. A copy of a complaint filed by J. Walker 3 weeks prior. Jaden. Ethan's blood boiled. They've been underpaying these kids, he muttered, slamming a palm on the desk, and bearing their complaints. Logan shifted nervously. It gets worse. Namaya date one. Check this. He handed Ethan a printed email chain between the store manager and a regional supervisor. The tone was casual, even smug. Don't worry about Walker's whining. His mom's eviction notice is public record. He won't make trouble if he wants to keep the paycheck. No father in the picture. We own his hours. Ethan felt sick. They targeted him, he whispered. Yes, sir, Logan confirmed. And likely others. They're manipulating these kids because they know they're vulnerable. Ethan's jaw tightened. His company, Cole Enterprises, owned 70% of the stores in Westridge Mall, including Ramsey Plaza. And somehow, this rot had grown under his nose. No more, he said coldly. Tomorrow, I go back. But this time, I'm not just a shopper. The next morning, Ethan dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit. No disguise this time. He walked into the mall with a new determination, flanked by Logan and his head of legal affairs. The store manager spotted him instantly, rushing from the kiosk, his expression a mix of confusion and panic. Sir, Mr. Cole, I didn't know you'd be visiting today. Ethan's gaze was ice. Apparently not. But I've been observing quite the operation you're running. The manager's smile wavered. Of course. Sir, I can explain. I bet you can. Ethan's voice cut sharply. But you'll explain it in my office. Now, Dareen 101. He turned to Logan. Shut down the kiosk for a full audit. Effective immediately. Customers and nearby employees watched as the manager was escorted out, sputtering excuses that fell flat. Ethan entered the kiosk. Jaden stood behind the counter, eyes wide, clutching a stack of folded shirts. Mr. Cole, Jaden asked, stunned. Ethan softened. Yeah, kid, it's me. Jaden's mouth opened, closed. You were the guy yesterday. You pretended. I needed to see it myself, Ethan said quietly. And I heard you. Jaden! I heard everything. The teen looked down, ashamed. I shouldn't have said anything. I was just mad. No. Ethan shook his head firmly. You should have. You were brave. He stepped closer. Listen, Jaden, what's happening here isn't your fault. It's theirs. And I promise you, it ends today. Jaden's eyes filled with cautious hope. Really? Ethan smiled gently. Really? And starting tomorrow, you're not sweeping floors off the clock anymore. You're going to work with me. Jaden blinked. Awareness enacted Pinai Wawan. Doing what, Dermoint? Helping me rebuild this place the right way, Ethan replied. Every policy, every manager, at Konosima Shorty, every injustice, we're tearing it down and starting over. Jaden's lip trembled. Nobody's ever said that before. Well, Ethan said with a grin, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. They're saying it now. Shorty Roshurs, son. And as he looked around the small, underlit kiosk, Ethan vowed silently, no more shadows, no more exploitation. From today on, every voice would be heard, and every injustice would be answered. Amaro wine, word spread like wildfire. By noon, the mall was buzzing. Employees whispered in corners. Customers speculated aloud. Photos of Ethan Cole walking the floor without an entourage were already circulating online. Headlines followed. Billionaire CEO makes surprise visit to his own mall. Inside Ethan's corporate office, the fallout began. Logan burst in, phone in hand. Sir, the board's already calling emergency meetings. The press wants a statement. Ethan barely looked up from the legal documents he was signing. Tell them we'll talk when the audit's done. Logan hesitated. There's something else. Ethan finally raised an eyebrow. What? Logan flipped his phone around. A leaked email chain was blowing up on social media. It included the manager's message about Jaden. We own his hours highlighted in bold. The internet was furious. Hashtags trending, Logan muttered. Boycott Ramsey Plaza. Ninakiant, justice for Jaden. Ethan set his pen down slowly. Good dis. Necessity word the weekend ganasum. Logan frowned. Good re the trusserazon. Yes, Ethan said calmly. Because now they're paying attention. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Tell PR, no spin, no excuses. We own this. We fix it publicly. Logan's jaw dropped. You're going public. Damn right I am, Ethan said. Tonight. Live interview. That evening, under the glare of studio lights, Ethan sat opposite a prominent news anchor. Across millions of screens, America tuned in. Mr. Cole, the anchor began. Today you shut down one of your own stores after an undercover visit. Why? Ethan leaned forward. Because I failed. I built a company I thought stood for integrity. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. And I'm here to say we're taking it back. The anchor nodded, intrigued. This started with an encounter yesterday. A young employee voiced frustrations you overheard. His name is Jaden Walker, Ethan said, voice steady. He's a hardworking kid, shouldering burdens no teenager should have to carry. And instead of supporting him, my management exploited him. That ends now. He looked straight into the camera. To Jaden, and every employee we failed. I hear you. Aha, Sonny Nerd, I see you. And we're making it right. Twitter exploded. Comments flooded in. Finally, a CEO who takes responsibility. I work at Ramsey Plaza. It's true. This has been going on for years. Give that kid a scholarship. Back at the mall, Jaden sat cross-legged on the floor of the closed kiosk, watching the interview on his phone. His mom sat beside him, teary-eyed. You're famous now, she joked softly. Jaden shook his head, overwhelmed. I didn't do anything. You spoke up, she corrected. That's everything? He stared at the screen as Ethan promised sweeping reforms, audits of every store, a new task force to oversee employee rights. For the first time in months, Jaden allowed himself a small, genuine smile. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his penthouse, exhausted but energized. Logan awaited him, holding a padded envelope. What's this? Ethan asked. Logan handed it over. Courier dropped it off. No return address. Ethan opened it and froze. Inside was a printed photo. A much younger Ethan, standing beside his estranged father, outside a shuttered textile factory, the same factory where his father had worked unpaid overtime for years before dying of a stress-induced heart attack. On the back, scribbled in shaky handwriting, remember where you came from. Ethan's throat tightened. He hadn't seen that photo in decades. How he whispered. Logan glanced at it. You okay? Ethan swallowed hard, nodding slowly. Yeah, he murmured. I just forgot. He looked out at the city lights. But I won't forget again. He folded the photo carefully, placed it inside his wallet. Then he turned back to Logan. A fire rekindled in his eyes. Tomorrow, he said, we go bigger. So what do you never up 1-1 on a 1-800? The next morning, Ethan Cole stood on the rooftop of the mall, the city skyline stretching beyond him. Below, TV crews set up outside the mall's main entrance. Reporters swarmed, waiting for his promised announcement. Logan approached, a clipboard in hand. You sure about this? Ethan, you're risking shareholder lawsuits. The board is already. I don't care about the board. Ethan cut him off. I care about the people who make this company run. The people we forgot. He turned to Logan. Get Jaden up here. I want him by my side. Logan hesitated. He's kind of overwhelmed, sir. All the more reason, Ethan said quietly. He needs to see what happens when you stand up. Minutes later, Jaden appeared, flanked by his mom. His eyes widened at the sight of cameras setting up far below. "You wanted to see me?" he asked cautiously. Ethan smiled, resting a hand on his shoulder. "I wanted you here for this." He turned back to Logan. "Are we ready?" Logan sighed. "They're live in 2 minutes." Ethan faced Jaden. "You nervous?" Jaden swallowed. "A little." "Good," Ethan said. "That means it matters." At exactly 10 a.m. Ethan stepped up to the podium set against the mall's main balcony. Hundreds of shoppers, employees, and media filled the plaza below. The cameras rolled. "Thank you for coming," Ethan began, his voice amplified over the crowd. "Yesterday, I walked these halls undercover. I heard complaints, saw frustrations, and witnessed management failures. I saw a company that's been coasting on reputation while failing the very people who built it." He glanced at Jaden beside him, then back to the crowd. "Today, when Wandam, that ends," murmurs rippled through the audience. "I'm announcing a full overhaul of Ramsey Plaza. Effective immediately. All hourly employees will receive wage increases. All managers will undergo mandatory ethics training. And every complaint filed in the last 5 years will be personally reviewed by an independent committee." Applause broke out. "But that's not all," Ethan continued, raising a hand. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. "Starting today, we're launching the Walker Scholarship Fund named after this young man here," he gestured to Jaden, "to support the education of employees and their families. First-year funding, $2 million. The crowd gasped. Jaden's mouth fell open. "For too long," Ethan said, "we've asked people like Jaden to carry the weight without giving them the tools to rise. That ends today." Cheers erupted. Ethan leaned closer to the microphone. "And to those in leadership who've profited from silence and fear, consider this your notice. We're cleaning house." Reporters scrambled, snapping photos, yelling questions. Jaden stared at him, wide-eyed. You named it after me." Ethan grinned. "You're the reason it exists." Jaden blinked rapidly, wiping his eyes. His mom hugged him tight, both overcome. Later, back inside Ethan's office, Logan collapsed onto the couch. "Well," Logan exhaled, "you've officially turned the company upside down. Wall Street's freaking out. HR's panicking. Our wills, Maria was." "Let him panic," Ethan interrupted, pouring himself a glass of water. "They'll catch up. If Overhearing." He held up his phone, scrolling through social media. Thousands of messages poured in. Employees sharing stories, thanking him, offering support. He set the phone down thoughtfully. "You know what scares me?" Logan. Logan raised an eyebrow. "What one?" "That it took a kid's quiet complaint for me to realize how far we drifted." Logan leaned forward. "You're fixing it." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah," he murmured, "but we're just getting started." He looked out the window at the bustling plaza below. "Tomorrow," he said, more to himself than to Logan, "we go beyond the mall." The following week, Ethan Cole sat alone in his office, staring at an email that had landed in his inbox at 3 a.m. It was from an anonymous sender. Subject line, "You're not finished yet." Attached was a PDF, a scan of internal memos, hidden audit reports, secret meeting transcripts, and at the bottom, a signature. A friend inside. Ethan leaned back, his heartbeat accelerating. The documents weren't just complaints, they were proof. Proof that several senior executives had been deliberately siphoning funds meant for employee benefits, diverting bonuses, and covering up safety violations. This wasn't neglect. It was sabotage. A knock at the door startled him. Jaden poked his head in. "You okay, Mr. Cole? You've been here since sunrise." Ethan managed a smile. "Come in. Kid." Jaden sat across from him, backpack slung over one shoulder. "What's up?" Ethan hesitated, then spun the monitor toward him. "These Are what your complaint unlocked? Jaden squinted at the spreadsheets and memos. Is that bad? It's worse than I thought, Ethan admitted quietly. Someone at the top was bleeding this company dry. Jaden frowned. Can you stop them? Ethan's jaw tightened. I have to. Oh, he closed the files. Jaden, he said slowly. Remember when you told me nobody listens, that speaking up doesn't change anything? Yeah. You changed everything. Jaden's eyes widened. Ethan stood, grabbing his jacket. Come on, I need you to see this. They walked into the executive boardroom, where Logan and half a dozen senior executives waited. What's this about? One of them demanded. Ethan tossed a printed stack of the leaked documents onto the table. Gentlemen, looks like we've got a rat's nest. Silence, then defensive murmurs. Where did you get these? Another executive asked sharply. Doesn't matter, Ethan said coolly. What matters is they're real. He turned to Logan. Call legal. Call compliance. I want independent investigators in here today. One executive stood, red-faced. Ethan, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, Ethan shot back. You're lucky I'm not calling the feds yet. He pointed at the stack. Effective immediately. You're all suspended pending investigation. Gasps filled the room. Hurry. You can't. I can, Ethan snapped. I own 51% of this company. The room fell into stunned silence. Jaden watched, his mouth slightly open. Ethan exhaled slowly. Gentlemen, this mall isn't just bricks and profits. It's a community. And you betrayed it. He gestured toward Jaden. You thought nobody would notice, but someone did. Later, in the atrium of the mall, employees gathered, whispers swirling. Ethan stood on the balcony with Jaden, looking down at the crowd. You sure about telling them everything? Logan asked beside him. I owe them the truth, Ethan replied. He stepped up to the microphone. Friends, he began, voice steady. This has been a hard week. We've uncovered corruption at the highest levels. People we trusted stole from you, lied to you. A murmur rippled through the crowd. But thanks to one brave voice, Ethan continued, nodding to Jaden. We're rebuilding. He raised his hand. Every stolen dollar is coming back. Every corrupt leader is gone. And from now on, this mall, your mall, belongs to you. The applause began hesitantly, then swelled into thunder. Jaden looked up at Ethan. Didn't think a complaint at a shoe store could do all this, he said, wonder in his voice. Ethan smiled. Never underestimate the kid who dares to speak. So, a month later, Ethan Cole walked through the mall's main corridor not as a billionaire hiding behind a disguise, but as a man finally seen. Where once he saw polished surfaces and profits, now he saw people. The security guard waving at a kid chasing balloons, the janitor whistling as he cleaned, the young barista perfecting her latte art. Jaden jogged up beside him, school backpack bouncing. They opened the youth center today, Jaden reported proudly. That used to be that empty department store. Remember? Ethan smiled. A remember is Serenomephron. You helped make it happen. The mall had changed. Murals now cover once blank walls, art commissioned from local teens. A new scholarship fund had been launched, honoring employees who dedicated years to the mall's community. Health clinics, free tutoring programs, financial literacy workshops. They weren't just corporate initiatives anymore. They were promises, Ninternen Simon, delivered. And at the heart of it all, Pamamui Sturm, people like Jaden. In the center of the atrium, a new plaque had been installed beneath a bronze sculpture. Ethan stopped in front of it, Jaden by his side. The inscription read, For every unheard voice, every unseen worker, every overlooked dream, you matter. Jaden stared at it quietly. That's kind of about me, isn't it? Ethan chuckled softly. It's about all of us. They stood there, watching shoppers pause to read the plaque, some taking pictures, others tracing the engraved words with their fingertips. Logan approached, holding a folder. "Media's asking if you'll give interviews," he said. Ethan shook his head. "Let the story tell itself." Logan raised an eyebrow. "You sure this could boost the brand?" Ethan turned, looking across the busy mall. "Logan, if we're still thinking in brand, we didn't learn a thing." Logan's expression softened. "How we? And fair enough. So on, Darren Mapwem." As they walked toward the food court, Jaden glanced up. "Hey, Mr. Cole Sekakunin onto." "Yeah. Why'd you come here undercover in the first place? You could have just sent surveys or whatever." Ethan paused. "Because numbers don't tell the whole story." Jaden. He looked around. "I needed to feel it. See what people wouldn't say to my face. Hear what they only whispered when they thought no one powerful was listening." Jaden nodded thoughtfully. "And now they know you're listening." Ethan smiled quietly. "Now, they know. We're all listening." That evening, as the mall lights dimmed, Ethan sat alone on a bench near the entrance. He watched as the last few families left, kids sleepy, parents juggling bags and strollers. A teenage janitor passed by, pushing a mop bucket, earbuds in. Ethan stopped him gently. "Hey!" The teen pulled out an earbud. "Yeah, don't send point. Thanks for keeping this place beautiful," Ethan said sincerely. The kid blinked, then grinned. "No problem. Man." He slid the earbud back in and continued. Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. It had started as a disguise, a secret mission. It ended with something bigger, a deeper understanding of the invisible threads that held his kingdom together. Not just leases, contracts, or profits. People want for modernization, their struggles, their quiet resilience, their dreams whispered over folding counters and break room tables. And as the mall doors locked for the night, Ethan Cole realized something profound. He hadn't saved the mall. The mall had saved him. A message flashed across the screen. Never underestimate the power of listening. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the loudest truths. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who needs hope, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales. And tell us where you're watching from today. Drop it in the comments below. If Worm. Sometimes, you have to step down from the top to truly see what's happening at the ground level. If this story opened your eyes or your heart hit like, share it with someone who needs a reminder that every voice matters. And subscribe for more powerful stories that go beyond the surface. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you ever felt overlooked or been the one who finally spoke up? Because one voice can change everything.